I don't know exactly where to go with this. I want to keep it succinct, but there's so many different things. But anyway, so I was in Gary's room, and Gary was gone, and Paul's ego is one of these people. It seems like a brown-nosing kind of thing to me. But anyway, he likes to goof and like, oh, this is the segment where we, you know, the guy that's phantasmagorical makes words up because that's what Gary says he does, you know. But anyway, Gary was gone, and I'm like, okay, what? You think these topics is silly? Okay, what do you think is important? He brought up the issue of, well, you know, why are people so stupid? Well, who hasn't thought of that, you know? He gave me a hard time later for, you always got an answer. Well, I can't help it if you think of things that have come up over the 30 years of online and other conversation that I've taken part in. So my idea, I brought this up before, you know, I think we should start teaching people logic, kids logic around kindergarten or even earlier, and teach that for a few years, hold off on math if we need to, because math is made out of logic. It's not really the other way around. It's easier to teach kids syllogisms, which is pretty much what you'd start with, you know, that, you know, Sammy is a dog. Dogs are fuzzy, therefore Sammy's fuzzy, you know, and teaching them this kind of stuff, they do understand logic at this kind of level, and that's all that logic is built up. It just gets complicated as you compound it over and over with more abstractions and more little rules, you notice, but the basic set of stuff. And I even explained when I went into it to Paul, it's like, well, you know, and it's weird the reaction I get. Some people say it's a complicated subject, should wait for college. Some people say it's so simple we don't need to teach it, people have it naturally. And he's like, no, what I think is it's not too complicated for the kids, and it would be a good idea, but I think that's what he was saying, but complicated culturally, you know, to get people to change their whole way of educating. I'm like, well, it's not really changing the whole way of educating. I mean, I have other ideas that might, you know, people aren't convinced it would be a good thing, but I mean, we're supposedly all believing logic is a good thing. And then, sure enough, you know, it all unfolded exactly as I had said, and with this weird dichotomy. And to me, it's almost like people are not clear. They're just kind of panicking, like, no, don't, not real logic. Gary, when he returned and took part in the conversation, he represents a side of this that's like, well, people are naturally logical. It's just the bad inputs. And it's like anybody trained in logic does not look at people and the way they reason as automatically logical or in any way logical. It's sound logic is pretty rare. It's amazing. That's the whole point of my thing, is that I look at politics and you see all these fallacies and bad logic and people getting elected using it and selling it. Yeah, I think people could learn some of this. And then as the conversation goes on, it's just like I realize, oh, I'm talking to a bunch of people that didn't take logic, and they don't know. They're just being an example. Gary realized that theoretically you can make a logical argument from false premises, but then he's like, people, no, it's not logical if you believe in something that's demonstrably untrue. And then he went with all of these undemonstrated things he believes. And it's like, logic is about the rules of inference, and people say, well, you need to get them the good inputs. Who cares about teaching them logic? You're just going to have crap input. Well, because if you have logic and you get crap input and you reduce it, instead of getting conclusions, you find all these contradictions, and you know this stuff, there's some problem in there, and you go back and try to find it out. And these are things that I shouldn't really have to explain. It's like people have not learned arithmetic. In the field of logic, they don't know the arithmetic of it. It's this world is supposed to, that's good, whatever, you know. If then, yeah, whatever. And people get it wrong all the time. There's millions of little logic puzzles that'll trick you, and even simple problems that trick people. And there's things that are confusing and tricky for logicians to figure out. And it's, you know, and just everybody's like, well, no, we already have that. And then they spend a lot of time talking about, you make up your own definitions of words, but they don't know the definitions. I mean, I go to the dictionary. I read a chapter so far of the logic book. That is what logic is. It's not about a logical argument. If it has bad input, there's a lot of results. Yeah, it could have bad output, or you could find the contradictions or whatever, but the argument part is the logical. The truth of the inputs is like piped and processed. We all know that, but then because there's so little regular training, we don't really get it. We forget it a lot of the time and just reason in our weird ways that are not sound. But yeah, it seems obvious. I don't know, why should it be a controversy? Supposedly everybody thinks logic is a good idea to use logic, and anybody really that looks at our society and our politics and advertising can see there's a lot of unsound logic, ill logic. So what's the defense and the panic? I don't get it. It's like nobody agrees with this. No, we don't need to teach logic starting in kindergarten. It's like, no, we don't need to teach arithmetic. I don't get it. Seems like a no-brainer. But